All right, welcome to Lab 1, and my name is BA, and my goal is to orient you to what we will be doing. I will try to make these videos to give you a sense of what you're walking into so you can be better mentally prepared. Um, Lab 1 Endocrine Physiology. So, how will I teach? How will I approach the material? I have surveyed the class and I've asked what people's preferred learning styles are, and I will try to accommodate those. But because anatomy and physiology requires you learn certain um, learning objectives, you have to meet those. I will use some techniques as well that allow you um, to be able to show some mastery in lab before you go off to after the lab to study on your own or do other things. So my ideal plan will be for those who want to work alone that there's at least a 10-15 minute period where everybody just works. If you want to work in a group or work alone, where I'm going to be walking around as like a consultant if you have questions. But I believe strongly that with the resources you have, the textbook, the models in front of you, and also pre-lab instruction and other things, you should be able to answer a lot of those things. So that is what I call this peer instruction. And there's a ton of evidence that shows that it enhances learning outcomes. I have done this before several times and it does improve overall performance, not just in terms of grades, but in terms of understanding. And so, what I will use for that, so in the on Blackboard, there is a folder called supplemental material in each unit, in each lab. So I will pick one of those things to have you engage with someone in your group. So you could fill out part of the table, you could draw a diagram, but whatever it is, you do that together and you take a picture of that and you turn that in at the end of lab. So like it's like an exit quiz, but also it's a form of feedback for me to see where people may still be struggling after they have left the lab. So if I need to make additional videos or um, address that some in some other way, I know to do that. Okay. So I'm also going to use what I call integrated teaching. So that's peer instruction. I've talked about that using supplemental material. I would also use integrated teaching. So by integrated teaching, I could teach the whole material, and you could listen to my beautiful lecture and take all the notes you can. But I may speak so fast, and that we have only 2 hours, so you still need to go through the models, the plastinates, and all of that. And so it's unrealistic for me to try to lecture you on everything, to fill out every single box in every single page of the lab manual. So I will do an integrated teaching approach where, at the minimum, let's say there's 5 different endocrine systems. I will try to teach one at the minimum in lab where I will teach the anatomy. And anatomy includes just both physical organ structures as well as structures at the level of the tissue. That is the histology that you would see on the slides. And excuse me. And then I will teach the function, the physiology part of things. And so these two objectives, objective one and objective five, are from in your lab manuals. There are 5 objectives. And so objective 5 is describe the process of the positive and negative feedback and be able to diagram those appropriate feedback loops for different hormones. So the instruction is clear. Be able to diagram the loops for several of the endocrine systems, endocrine hormones. So that's a specific goal. So it's not just adequate that you know it in your head, but the learning objective is to be able to draw it. Excuse me. Oh boy. Excuse me. Um, so that's what I mean by integrated teaching. I will teach you the anatomy, teach you the associated physiology, and if I do have some additional material maybe that applies this information clinically, that I will bring into lab. So again, you can essentially use novel material to do achieve the goals of objective 1 and 5 as is on here. So again, it's a little challenging, but I promise you that with that challenge comes more mastery. And of course, I am in lab to help you as well to the extent that you might need it. So these are learning objectives for lab one. Identify. Those are very low level goals. List the hormones, low level goals. But then when it gets to like objective 5 at the end, describe and diagram the pathway by which the hypothalamus releasing hormones stimulates a response. And the steps are outlined below. Now that's an integrative um, learning outcome, and that takes a little bit more brain power. So I will ensure that at the minimum we go through one, maybe even two or three of those in lab, such that when you go back and you study, you know what you are looking for. So, for example, in this lab, I will use this supplemental learning material. This is what I will ask that you and your pair kind of quiz yourselves on. So you can, of course, look into your textbook and fill out this sheet very, very easily, but you are taking away the opportunity to learn and process information verbally. So rather than um, oh, I'm just going to fill it out. I'll study it at home. Well, you have 2 hours. Why don't you do your first study in here, whereby one of you both have the sheet and you quiz the first person. Okay, from the hypothalamus, what stimulates the release of TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone? Well, you could even ask them, what is TSH? And let's say I'm the other person. It starts stimulating hormone. Oh, okay. So what stimulates it? I think it's thyrotropin releasing hormone. Oh, are you sure? I don't think so. Well, it says this in the book. And then, so you fill that out. So what you are doing in that exchange, verbal exchange, really is you are making connections in your brain. You're not just passively listening, you're actively learning. Believe me, it works. If you want evidence of why peer instruction works, I can I can overwhelm you with that kind of information, but I won't, except you want me to. All right. So, how is the lab set up? What would you see tomorrow when what would you see in lab when you come in this week sometime? You're gonna have microscope stations where you'll be required to look at the histology, the tissue setup for different organs. Okay, that's the top first one on the left, and then you have physical plastic models of different organs. So this is, I think, the female reproductive internal organs, and of course that means you will talk about the hormones that drive that system, and you're gonna have as well wet specimens, which is again preserved tissue, human tissue that's been preserved, where with the probe, you can see the probe over here, you might be required to point to specific organs or specific structures. And it's expected that you know those things. These are the kinds of ways you will be tested on the quiz as well as on the midterm exams. And then you could also have plastinates as well. Again, for that, if I want you to identify anything, I would put a pin on it, and I'll tell you, what is this? And you are required to write out those answers. They're not multiple choice. How will you be tested? You're going to have APR quizzes. So part of the APR you've done, one of it will be projected on the board on the board during your exams, and you have about 30 seconds to 45 seconds to identify the part that is colored on the board and write it in your answer sheets. You may be also be able to told to identify zones of tissues. So, for example, I might point to here, what tissue is that, and Or what tissue is this? Well, that requires you to have seen those structures in APR and be able to identify which is which. Okay, and you could be asked what's produced in that particular zone. Is it what hormone is coming from there? And then that could go into the physiology. What does it do? So you might be asked, things like what does that hormone do? You might be asked how diagram the feedback. Again, that's objective four. Again, maybe in this case for the thyroid hormone. Okay. Okay, I will do this every now and then. I will try where I would ask you something, um, an application of that. Again, this is a clinical application. An application of that, what we learned. I would ask you to maybe watch a video or read something and try to answer some questions collaboratively. And so this is one of it. For three famous people: Barbara Bush, Andre the Giant. Some of you may not know who Andre the Giant is. Um, and Lionel Messi. And again, these are the instructions. Do it, and I expect that you will do it together as a group. Maybe two or three of you or four of you sitting together on the part of a table. And if you want to do it solo, that's fine too. No pressures. Answer the question. The instructions are there, and upload it on Blackboard. There's a space on Blackboard for it. It's a complete incomplete type assessment. Okay. All right. So that's it. I look forward to working with you. And if you have questions, email me. Otherwise, see you soon.